You've been walking past that shady corner of your yard for years, writing it off. Too dark. Nothing will grow there. I made the same mistake for a solid decade. Had a north-facing strip along my fence line, 4 feet wide and 30 feet long, and I surrendered it to weeds. Then an old grower at the farmer's market looked at me and said, "Son, that's not a dead zone. That's a salad garden." He was right. I went home, tore out the weeds, and that strip has been feeding my family ever since. Here's what old-time gardeners knew, and most of us completely forgot. The crops that built civilization, the leafy greens, the herbs, the woodland perennials that kept people alive through hard winters. Most of them don't want full sun. They evolved in shade. Today, I'm going to show you 12 crops that will completely change the way you think about shade forever. Stick around because number 7 on this list is a Japanese woodland perennial that sells for $8 a bud at specialty markets, and it flat out refuses to grow anywhere except shade. And number 12 is so productive in the worst light conditions you have. So ancient, so overlooked, that once you plant it, you will genuinely wonder why nobody ever told you about it. Make sure you hit that subscribe button because we post practical, old knowledge gardening content that'll save you money and help you grow more food from less space. So let's get into it. Number 1, lettuce. I know you're already thinking about skipping ahead. I don't, because I guarantee you've been growing lettuce in exactly the wrong place your whole gardening life. Most people put it in the sunniest bed they have, fight bolting from June onward, and wonder why by midsummer it's bitter and gone. I did this for years. Here's what old kitchen gardeners knew. Lettuce is a shade crop, always has been. Roman gardeners grew it in enclosed peristyle gardens, shaded on 3 sides by walls and columns. Medieval monastery gardens tucked it under trellises and along north-facing walls on purpose, not because they were making do, but because they knew shade was a tool. It delays bolting by keeping soil temperatures cooler, sometimes by 10 degrees on a hot day. That drop extends your harvest by weeks. A plant that bolts bitter by mid-June in full sun keeps producing clean. Sweet leaves well into July in partial shade. 3 to 4 hours of direct sun is all it needs. Morning sun is better than afternoon. For variety, I grow black-seeded Simpson in my shaded spots every time. It's been around since before the Civil War and handles heat, cold, and low light better than anything else I've tried. Sow seeds at 1/8 of an inch deep as soon as you can work the soil. Lettuce germinates at 40 degrees. For cut and come again, sow dent, shear the whole planting at 6 inches, and it regrows in 2 to 3 weeks. 3 or 4 harvests from one sowing. That's the deal in shade. Number 2, spinach. Every spring, gardeners race to get spinach in early. It bolts by late May, and they call it a failure. The thing nobody tells you is that spinach has a short spring season, no matter what. But shade gives you a better second act than you ever expected. Spinach traveled from ancient Persia through medieval Europe, where monastery gardeners grew it as a shoulder season staple in enclosed, stone-walled plots, naturally shaded on multiple sides. Not an accident. The tip I wish someone had given me 20 years ago: plant spinach in your shadiest bed in late summer, 6 to 8 weeks before first frost. Fall spinach in partial shade outlasts spring spinach by weeks. It slows down in the cold, sits quietly under mulch through winter, and comes back in earliest spring before anything else in the garden has even thought about waking up. My pick is Bloomsdale Longstanding, an 1874 heirloom with thick, dark Savoyed leaves that bolt far more slowly than modern types. Sow 1/2 inch deep, thin to 4 to 6 inches. Growth slows in shade, but those plants stay harvestable significantly longer. In shade, that trade-off is absolutely worth making. Number 3, arugula. My best arugula has always come from spots I planted because I ran out of room elsewhere. The strip along the north side of my house, a bed under the pergola. I was doing it right for the wrong reasons. Arugula has been part of Italian cuisine since the 6th century BC, grown by Roman farmers in courtyard kitchen plots with irregular, often blocked sunlight. The bitterness people find overwhelming in grocery store arugula is a product of heat and stress. In shade, and that flavor mellows into something genuinely enjoyable. Still peppery, but rounded, not harsh. Shade keeps the plant cooler and delays bolting by 2 to 4 weeks. For shade culture, wild arugula, sometimes called sylvetta, is the variety to grow. 50 days to full size, far more bolt-resistant and shade-tolerant than standard types. Sow 1/8 of an inch deep, germination in 5 to 7 days. One critical thing: put floating row cover on from the day you sow. Flea beetles will destroy young arugula almost overnight, and shade doesn't protect you from that. Don't skip the row cover. Number 4. Swiss chard. This is the crop that bridges the gap between spring and fall when everything else has quit, and it does it in partial shade better than almost anything on this list. Aristotle mentioned chard in the 4th century BC. It traveled through Mediterranean gardens for centuries as a staple precisely because of one quality nothing else on this list has. It produces all summer long through heat that kills spinach and bolts lettuce in partial shade. It's not day-length sensitive. It doesn't bolt in long summer days the way spinach does. And it can handle soil temperatures from 40 degrees all the way to 100. I've had single chard plants produce continuously for 6 months from one spring sowing. One plant, 6 months. Sow seeds 1/2 inch to 1 inch deep, 2 to 4 weeks after your last frost. Thin to 8 to 12 inches. Each seed is actually a cluster and thinning is non-negotiable. My shade variety is Ford Hook Giant. 60 days, reliable, unfazed by low light and neglect. Harvest outer leaves at 8 to 10 inches and the plant just keeps going. Leave the central growing point alone and you'll still be harvesting the same plant in October. Number 5. Kale. I'll tell you something I didn't believe until I tasted it myself. Shade-grown kale is a completely different eating experience than sun-grown kale. More tender, less bitter, almost sweet when you catch it right in early fall. The sun-grown stuff I used to cook, I needed to massage it, hide it in a smoothie. The shade-grown leaves from my north fence I eat raw. That's not nothing. Scottish farmers grew kale in partially shaded Calliard kitchen plots, walled cottage gardens with inconsistent sun, for centuries. It was a survival crop through long northern winters, and those Calliard growers weren't working with perfect light. They worked with what they had: 4 hours of direct sun minimum in shade culture. For variety, I go to Red Russian or Lacinato. Both have dark, broad leaves that work like light collectors, and both hold their tenderness better in low light than curly types. So 1/4 to 1/2 inch deep, 12 to 24 inches apart. The best time to grow kale in shade is fall. Shorter days, cooler temps, and that first frost turns the leaves genuinely sweet. That's when shade kale earns it. Number 6. Sorrel. Here's the one I get asked about most. Sorrel is a perennial. You plant it once and it comes back every spring for years, in the shade, with essentially no intervention. It's the first green up in my garden, sometimes poking through snow, and the last to disappear in fall. French kitchen gardens have grown sorrel for centuries. Sorrel soup, Potage, Germany, is a classic spring dish across France and Eastern Europe, made with the first leaves of the season from enclosed, partly shaded garden plots. Shade produces larger, more tender leaves than full sun, and the bright lemon apple flavor holds better through summer without the heat-driven coarseness you get from sun-grown plants. Grow profusion if you can find it. Seed sterile, meaning no invasiveness problem. French sorrel is smaller, mat-forming, and the most shade-tolerant of the group. Plant seeds 1/4 inch deep, thin to 8 inches. Remove flower stalks the moment they appear. 2 or 3 plants is genuinely all a household needs, and once established, sorrel basically grows itself. I divided my original 2 plants 4 years ago, and now have a dozen tucked into every shaded corner I own. Now, if you're finding this valuable and starting to realize how much productive ground you've been walking past every single day, do me a huge favor. Hit that like button right now. It helps this reach people who are tired of being told they need perfect conditions to grow real food. And if you haven't subscribed yet, click that button and ring the bell. We're building a community of growers who believe that working with your land, all of it, shaded corners included, will always beat fighting against it. All right, let's keep going because we're just getting to the truly remarkable ones. Number 7. Japanese ginger. I heard about myoga from an older Japanese American gardener at a seed swap, went home, looked it up, and then didn't plant it for 2 more years because I couldn't quite believe it. A shade-loving perennial, grows 4 feet tall, produces flower buds at its base that sell for $5 to $8 each at specialty markets, in the spot under your fence where nothing else will grow. Myoga appears on dozens of traditional Japanese family crests, 2 buds side by side, a symbol of prosperity. Japanese households have grown it in shaded garden corners for centuries, tucked beneath bamboo groves and under the eaves of old farmhouses. This is not a novelty. Japan produces 9,000 tons of it annually. Plant rhizomes in spring, 1.5 inches deep, in your shadiest, moistest corner. It burns in afternoon sun. Shade is not a compromise here, it's a requirement. Officially hardy to Zone 7, though growers in Zone 5 have overwintered it with heavy mulch. Give it 2 years to establish. Then it spreads slowly, produces young spring shoots you can harvest like asparagus, and drops flower buds at soil level in late summer. One plant can yield 16 or more buds in a season. Each bud, sliced thin, goes into miso soup or over cold soba and tastes like nothing else. Floral, gingery, cooling. This is the crop most gardeners don't know exists, and it only grows in the shade. Number 8. Mint. Mint evolved in moist woodland edge habitats along stream banks and forest margins, and it shows. Most gardeners treat it as a sun herb that tolerates some shade. That's backwards. It's a shade herb that tolerates some sun. Romans grew it in enclosed courtyard gardens and wore garlands of it at feasts. In Appalachian mountain culture, mint grew wild along every shaded creek bank long before anyone planted it formally. Old-timers harvested it from the shade as medicine and flavoring for generations before garden culture caught up. Grow it in containers, always, to contain the runners. 2 to 4 hours of direct sun is plenty. Chocolate mint and pineapple mint genuinely prefer partial shade. Pineapple mint will scorch in full afternoon sun. Cut stems to 1 inch from the soil 2 or 3 times per season. The slower growth in shade produces more concentrated oils. My chocolate mint patch runs along the north fence in nearly full shade and is the most fragrant thing in my entire garden. I stopped trying to grow it in sun years ago and never looked back. Number 9. Parsley. Parsley's reputation as fussy comes entirely from its slow germination, 2 to 5 weeks, which will test your patience, but that's all it asks. After that, it's one of the most productive shade herbs you'll grow. Ancient Greeks and Romans grew parsley in walled garden spaces. It traveled through medieval monastery herb gardens as a medicinal staple, and those enclosed cloister plots, shaded and protected, turned out to be exactly its right environment. 3 to 6 hours of direct light is enough. Sow seeds 1/8 of an inch deep and soak them in warm water for 24 hours before planting. It cuts germination time meaningfully, thin to 10 to 12 inches. I grow flat leaf Italian parsley in my shaded border. Strongest flavor, highest yield. Harvest whole outer stalks at the base. Never snip the tops. A well-grown parsley plant produces from spring until hard frost. It's biennial, so it returns smaller in year 2 before seeding. Let it go to seed and you'll have parsley volunteers in that shaded spot for years without replanting. Number 10. Alpine strawberries. Strawberries in shade. I know what you're thinking, but alpine strawberries evolved at forest edges and clearings, not in open fields. They're closer to a wild woodland species, and they behave like one. Thomas Jefferson grew them at Monticello in the early 1800s. The French call them fraises des bois, berries of the woods, and sell them as a luxury item. The berries are tiny. Plant them 12 inches apart in partial to full shade. They don't run like regular strawberries, so no containment headaches. Hardy zones 3 through 9. They come back every year. My variety is white soul or white soul macker, pale yellow fruit that birds don't recognize as ripe, so you actually get to harvest it before they do. A dozen plants gives you a handful of berries every day through summer and into fall, in shade, from a spot you wrote off years ago. Before the final one, let me be honest about 3 patterns I see, including things I used to do myself. The first pattern is treating shade as a problem to solve. Most gardeners spend energy cutting limbs, adding reflective surfaces, doing anything to get more sun into a shaded spot. What works better? Find crops that consider your shade a gift and plant them on purpose. The second pattern is growing fruiting crops everywhere: tomatoes, peppers, squash, planted in every available space, including shaded beds where they'll disappoint. Reserve sun for fruit, shade for leaves. That one swap doubles what your garden can produce. The third pattern is leaving shaded ground bare over winter. These beds are perfect for cold, hardy greens under mulch or low tunnels. A bed that grows sorrel, mint, and chives spring through fall can carry spinach and miner's lettuce from fall through early spring. That ground should never be empty. And here we are at number 12, the one I saved for last because it represents everything we've talked about today. Miner's lettuce. This is the plant that closes the whole loop, and I want you to really hear this. Miner's lettuce doesn't just tolerate shade, it prefers it. It produces bigger, sweeter, more succulent leaves in deep shade than in any other condition. Full shade, the darkest corner of your yard, is where this plant thrives. Native to Western North America, the Ohlone people of California called it rure and relied on it for food and medicine for thousands of years. Then, in 1849, California gold rush miners started eating it to prevent scurvy through brutal winter months. Handfuls of these little round-leafed plants pulled from beneath canyon walls and forest floors. That's where the name comes from. A survival food, growing in the places everyone else had walked past. It's a winter and spring annual. You scatter the tiny black seeds on the surface of the soil in fall, rake them in lightly, and walk away. Germination in 7 to 10 days when the soil is below 65 degrees. By late winter, you have a carpet of lily pad-shaped leaves, small, round, tender, that taste clean and mild and faintly spinach-like. The whole plant is edible. Stems, leaves, flowers. In shade, unlike almost every other green on this list, it holds on until the heat of summer finally convinces it to go dormant. Then it self-seeds, and next fall it comes back without you doing a single thing. I have a strip under my old apple tree, 4 feet wide, permanently shaded, compacted soil with years of leaf litter. I scattered miner's lettuce seed in that strip 5 years ago, and I have never planted it again. Every February it appears. Every year it feeds my family fresh greens before anything else in my garden has moved. The darkest, most written-off piece of ground I own is now one of the most reliable food sources I have. That's the lesson. Shade isn't a limitation. It's a growing condition, the same as any other. When you stop fighting it and start choosing crops that belong in it, the part of your garden that's been doing nothing for years becomes the most productive ground you own. Your grandparents knew this, the old kitchen gardeners knew it, the monks in their cloister gardens knew it. We just forgot, and now we're remembering. If you learned something today, hit that like button. It genuinely helps other growers find this. Drop a comment below. Are you team salad greens, team herbs, or team woodland perennials? And if you haven't subscribed yet, hit that button and ring the bell so you never miss a video. The best gardens aren't the ones with the most sun. They're the ones where every inch of ground is working.